back to another episode of In Love with Love podcast with your amazing host, Miss Anja. And I'm Nicole, and we are your hostess with the mostest. Hey, we are so excited to have our guest here today, Eric and Monique. Like, we cannot wait to jump into their story and unpack. We are back. Season 3 is all about emotional intelligence as it relates to relationships. We're talking about friendships, the relationships that you have with yourself, the relationship that you have with God, how you show up in the marketplace, in the workplace, how you show up. Listen, all types of relationships can benefit from a level of emotional intelligence. So we really want to unpack that on your journey, Eric and Monique. So we're excited to introduce you to our guests. Welcome.
Hey.
Thank you.
Good.
And we want to jump right in. We don't want to belabor the time or wait. We want to have you. This is what we do often. And so we know that you have so many accolades, and we just want to tell the people who you are. Like, can you, Eric, start out by introducing your amazing wife?
I start out by saying my wife is amazing. And that is the truth. And this is my wife of 27 years. Is that right? 26, 27.
Yeah, we're going on 27.
We're going on 27. Yeah. Monique Etheridge, she's an incredible businesswoman, entrepreneur. She's educated. She's a great, compassionate, loving, awesome, fantastic, beautiful, compassionate. I need some other definitions. All the great definitions. That's my wife. That's
yes. Thank you.
My go.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to introduce you to my best friend. His name is Eric Etheridge. We've been best friends for about 30 years now. We had no idea we were going to get married the day we met, but he's definitely my best friend, my confidant. Sometimes he is the only person that I can talk to. But a lot of people know him as Prophet Eric, but he's still my Eric. But he's an entrepreneur. But a lot of people don't understand. He also has a bachelor's in business and information systems. And I always tell people, if it wasn't for my husband, I'd still be using a rotary phone. So he's my IT person behind the scenes. He makes me look smarter than I am. And so he's just a good person to do life with. So I always tell people when they're thinking about marriage, you want to marry a friend. Yeah. So sometimes that person might be right in front of you and you're not even thinking of it like that. So
that's good. Can you kind of go even deeper into that? Those were amazing intros. First of all, I love it. To unpack that, like when you're saying, okay, and because I know your story, you guys began, a lot of people do earlier on, right? Like when you're in college, when you're younger. So kind of unpack that for us and how that evolution of the friendship evolved.
Eric, you want to go first?
Well, the funny thing is that didn't quite happen to us. we met a little bit later on in life, definitely after college, and it was by happen chance. And so the very unique thing that happened with Monique and I is that when we met in '96, I happened to be visiting in Atlanta when I met her, and we had a long distance relationship for a whole year. And she's right. Monique is my best friend, and I always say that you have to marry your wife. Your spouse has to be a best friend because of the way life is. The words now is lifing, but because the way life is, if you don't have your best friend, I mean, it's going to be very difficult to make it. If she's not your best friend or he's not your best friend, you have to at least be they need to be number one. If they're not number one, they better be number two. But more so, we recommend that they number one because you just have to have a someone that you can just exhale and let your hair down.
Yeah. That's good. You don't have to have any pretenses. I think Monique and I talk, but we were just talking about we don't need to put on airs. We don't need to put on pretenses. That's important to have that safe place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not good at putting on airs. I mean, this is how I am at work. This is how I'm at church. This is how I am all the time. And I just like being consistent. I like to be nice to people because I'm very sensitive to people. I know people have been through a lot. A lot of people are hurting, and you just don't know where people's breaking points may be. So you just need to be, when people are talking, I'm really trying to sense what's going on, what's going on behind that smile, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because so many people fake the funk. And I'm like, no, what's really going on, you know?
I love that about you. Can I say that? Because to me, I was just thinking about asking the next question. Like, I was just thinking about honestly asking for you to kind of define when you say best friend, what are some of those qualities that are so valuable to you in one another? But one of those things I think that will shine through, which I love about you, Monique, is that, and because I feel like I can relate to that, like, you're not a surface person. So when you're talking about people, because people say, people, you just ask, well, how are you? How was your day? And people don't really think you mean it, right? But
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I really mean that. Like, how are you? Like, how was your day? Like, I want you to kind of, talk to me. Let's engage if something's going on. So that's one thing I think that would be valuable. What would you guys say? What's valuable in terms of, understanding you want this as a best friend, this kind of character?
Okay, money. You want to say something?
Oh, I'm about to say,
Mhm.
well, the funny part is sometimes, like when it was obvious that we were going to get married, I was like, God, he's the nicest person that I ever met. I'm like, does he just give to everybody? And and it's so funny because now that we're married, I'm like, well, wait a minute, what you gonna give away now? You know. But that's just how he is. He just gives, 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 gives. But I'm like, well, I'm the budget person. Like, wait a minute now. Let's put some parameters here. Let's put some administration to this thing here. But that was one of the things that attracted me to him because he was giving, and that's just kind of how it is. But I think in life that, especially, particularly, with my mom being sick, with what I'm going through right now, I'm able to just come home and just relax, or just say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, or, you know, or since he's already experienced that journey, to just dump on it. I wouldn't say dump, but, he knows what that feels like. So it's different when someone's going through something and they don't know, they don't have the experience,
Mm-hmm.
versus someone just giving you some book knowledge. And I'm like, no, he knows, he understands.
Yeah, and I will say that even about when you're going through as you have aging parents, the thing is that, and that's what we say about being best friends. You have to have someone who you can go through your ups and downs. You can celebrate your victories, but at the same time, need someone to go through some of your low moments in life, and not be like, well, you're my wife, and you're not fulfilling this, that, and the other. I mean, like,
Mm.
you don't want to hear that when you're going through. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't work. And so
Yeah.
that's why you need someone who can, who you can, you can just relate to, or someone whose compassion is going to hear what you have to say, and is going to go through it with you. And so, because if you'll find some couples and they're like, I mean, they'll stick. It's funny, people would say, is marriage a contract, or what they say is
A covenant.
covenant or contract? And people say
Mm-hmm.
contract, and they totally missed it. If it's a contract, the moment that they fail to fulfill any part of the contract, that they're in breach, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden they give them a reason to step out. And so marriage is
Mm-hmm.
definitely not a contract; it's definitely a covenant.
You
Because
made a good point. I want to, and then I'll let Andrea if she has some interjections. But I can relate again to Monique because I know that you are only child. I am an only child. Aging parents, older parents. I thank God they're in their health, they're in their right mind. I thank God. I thank God. But I do often think about the time that will come where it's like, decisions will be made. I mean, we all have to transition to the other side. Like when these things happen, I'm like, Lord, please, my desire is to be in the relationship with my husband and to do life with him because I know, again, I don't even, we don't have siblings. So you can't lean on siblings and there's no guarantees because everybody deals with grief differently. But I think about that because that is really one of my heart's desires. However, realistically knowing, even though you may have that expectation of someone, honestly, they may not show up that way. So I think about that too.
yeah,
What would you say to that?
Well, the thing is, it's something like when you are dating someone,
oh
it's
yeah,
very, very vital that you spend time with that extended family, because that person may not show you the traits of the family, but you would get a good feel like Christmas, Thanksgiving, holidays, how the family behaves, how the family acts when something happens. Because although that person may not ever come live at your house, but that attitude or behavior will. It's like, oh, that's kind of like a family trait. This is
Hmm.
what their family does and what their family does not do. And I think that was another reason why I was attracted to Eric's family, because our families were similar. We were very much like, okay, well, it's Christmas, we gotta go home. It was no doubt that we weren't gonna be with family. It's no doubt that when something happens to the family, we all gather together. So I needed someone who understood that versus someone like, oh, they'd be all right. No, I'm going, well, I'm going to be there for my family and vice
Yes.
versa. So that's very important to spend a lot of time with the other person's family, because they may do something totally crazy that you're like, what are y'all doing?
Right.
What do you mean everyone in your family's in jail? What do you mean? Like, it's just like, you have to watch out for those traits.
Right.
So,
Right.
mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah. And you got to, you got to. A lot of times when we talk, you're in your dating period. That's the interview period. That's like, oh, let me find out. Have you ever been through anything?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's the thing right there. How do you handle? Remember that old song by
New edition. Can you
New
stand the
Edition? Can you
rain?
stand the rain?
Yeah.
Oh, love it.
Everybody likes sunshine. Baby, can you
Have you ever
stand
been in the
the
rain?
rain?
that's
Yeah.
that's good. That's good.
Yeah. And it's like we start off with the hard part first.
I know, right? We
Just come out with the hard part first and
dive
get
right
to the
in.
easy part. Because it's just like when TD Jake said, it was really funny. I think I told you this, Nicole, the other day. TD Jakes was teaching and he was saying, hey, look, my brother and I looked exactly alike. My brother bought a motorcycle,
That's right.
however, his brother married, a Caucasian lady. So he's telling the congregation, you see someone on a motorcycle that look like me, that's not me, it's my brother. And so his brother was talking about marriage and he was saying why he was on a motorcycle. Everything's good when everything's straight, everything's falling in place, money's
Yeah.
right, health's right, everything's good. It's just when you're
Right.
in that curve, you have to lean together. And if you don't, if one person's going left, the other person's going right, that's when you're going to crash.
Right.
Accident.
So you have to lean together.
It's the
But
power
I
of
want
agreement.
exactly. But and you have to agree quickly too, because
Mm.
sometimes things do happen. Like you're like, I don't know about that, but okay. Let's pray about it. Like, all right. But when you stick to that agreement, you gotta like stick to it and work through it.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to go back to the covenant and contract,
Uh-huh.
because that's what's going on so many times. And I'm not throwing shade on anybody who's gone through a divorce, because there's reasons things happen. We get it. However, that when people look into marriage, they just think that everything's going to be rosy, and everything can be rosy, but you have to go into the mindset that this is unto death. You can't go in with the mindset of, well, he grows old and bald and fat, I'm out. It doesn't work that way. No.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Um, no,
Well, take us
but
back. We want to go back to the beginning when you said you started to go there, Eric. You were like, okay, I had popped on the scene. It was 96. I was in the ATL, Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And what went on to meet this lovely lady?
Well, I had more hair. I was a lot slimmer, and I was in great shape. Yeah, I was. How we met? So I was visiting from DC. I lived in DC, and I just happened to be visiting the ATL. And shortening the story, and I end up going to Piedmont Park. I think it was the Montreal Jazz Festival that they have every year in what's that? The Labor Day.
Yes,
May. No, Labor
it
Day.
is.
Labor Day.
It's the last
Labor
of
Day.
May. Yeah.
No,
No,
oh,
this
that's what
one
that's
was
that's what.
Labor Day. It was a jazz and the
It was the
gospel.
Jazz and Gospel Festival.
Oh, okay.
What's that?
Right.
Whatever that is, it's that the
Yeah, Labor Day.
Labor Day. And so
Mhm.
we were my cousins and I and well actually my sister and my cousin said, look, you must let's stop hanging out with the old folks and let's go down. We already got this jazz festival down at this park. You want to go? All right, so I go. And we went out and they had jazz on one side, gospel on another side. And it was just so funny. We were about to leave, and my cousin actually met one of her friends And then as I was standing there, Monique walks in front of me, and and this the spiritual side of it. God said, "Go talk to her." I'm like, I ain't gonna go talk to her. I'm gonna go get embarrassed and look like a fool in the midst of all these people. This girl turned me down, So I said, "No, but go talk to her." So I'm sitting there. So I start walking, and then me and God having this debate, and then I walked past it. And finally, I turned back around and introduced myself, and Monique was sitting down with her friend, and I said, "Hey," good looking. You know that.
Say that.
I said, "Hey, my name is Eric."
No.
Did you know? So did you know, like, you were already saved and you heard God at this time? Like, it was a whole. Were you serious and deep into the Lord at this time?
No, I mean, I knew God. I was saved, and I read the Bible, and that was it. That was the
Okay.
extent of it. I wasn't where I am now. I'm totally different where I am now and
Okay.
where I was at that particular point. I did have a relationship with the Lord, and I mean, I've always been able to hear God's voice, and was very sensitive to the Lord and read. But at this time, not really. Um, you know, it
Because
wasn't. It
I
wasn't like
wonder how many men, often than not, actually started interjecting your story. I was just,
that.
it's interesting how you said you heard God say, "Hey, go talk to her," and I wonder how many men actually brushed that off, like,
Mhm.
nah.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. Here's what I would say this about women. I was telling somebody the other day. I mean, and that's possible. What women don't understand is that the value that they have, and they are the jewel, and they sometimes they will bring the men into who they are. And sometimes men probably don't even pay attention, and you got to understand that men are visual, and so a lot of times that men are going to go look, based upon most of the time they're going to be attracted to the aesthetic part of it. In most situations, if they don't know you, now if they know you and everything, then you can build a relationship, through friendship, and it evolves. But most of the time, they're gonna go on what they see.
That's good.
And so,
She has
Eric, you
something to
liked
say.
what you saw.
Yeah. Oh, she's like a lady. She had her blue shorts and had her orange top, where she had like a yellow jean top on top of that. She had her sandals on.
And that's what I was hitting at.
Yeah.
I was like, I wanted to see how accurate the
Oh yeah.
memory was, but that's
Oh
how
yeah.
you know it's love
Yeah.
when the
She was on. She
memory
was
I
on
comes.
the.
still got the outfit actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I still had the shirt, and she was on a blanket, and she was
Yeah.
with Carmela. But there's a funny part to the story that she probably won't
Yeah.
tell. But go ahead.
But what part?
The
That's
part when I was such so I was this is the part that she always loves that people get excited about. So I stood there talked to her for about every bit of 30 minutes of I don't know 30 35 40 minutes before she invited me to sit down on her blanket. Then all of a sudden, once I was able to sit down, then she put a lipstick on.
no.
Only after.
Well, no, let me backpedal here for a second. Let me tell my version of the story. So, at the time I was at New Birth, and Apostle Long said, "Go to Piedmont Park and support Byron Cage and Purpose."
Mhm.
And I was really down. I was like, "Oh my God," I was like, and it was really funny. I was working in the entertainment industry at the time too, on the side. So I was working for Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston, and everybody in the studio
My prerogative. Sorry.
I know was dating, getting engaged, and I was like, dang, God, I ain't that ugly that I should at least have a boyfriend, somebody, you know. But I was really trying to do things God's way. And so, when that happened, you're like, nobody wants to talk to you. So, and I told the Lord that I am not going to give a man my phone number unless he answers these questions correctly. I just told the Lord that morning.
Oh
Now,
wow.
when Eric came to talk to me, I didn't know it was going to be that day. I'm thinking like, within a year, somebody's going to come talk to me and I ask the questions and then it'll happen. But I didn't know it was going to be the same day. And so I went to Piedmont Park to support Byron Cage and Purpose because this is before Byron Cage became famous. And so when
Mhm.
we look at has a following, but he's doing good. Praise Jesus. So I went to
Mhm.
Piedmont Park. And so when Eric said, "Hi, my name is Eric," and I was like, "Hello, my name's Monique. And are you saved? How you know you're saved? What's your vision?"
Oh, that's you.
My mother said I can't marry nobody unless they graduated college. So did you graduate college? And so he answered all the questions correctly. And I was standing there shocked because normally I'm thinking, if I'm going to ask a man all these questions, like boom, he
You
said,
was shooting
"Hi,
out the
my name
gate.
is,"
You didn't hold
huh?
back. You just was shooting out the gate. No, no, you didn't
Exactly.
hold
I was
back.
like, why bother? You know? And so he answered the questions correctly. And then I said, "Oh, you can sit on my blanket if you like." And then I kind of mouthed to my girlfriend. I was like, "He got the prettiest eyes." I was like, "He's cute." And I was like, "Oh my God." And so I'm sitting there looking, I'm like, I am staring at him like, what man is this that answers questions like this? Because somebody else would have been like, this girl is nuts and just walked off. And he
I
sat
love how
there.
God just literally dropped him in your lap, or should I say on your blanket?
Yeah, I know. That's basically it. And then there was a sign, but we didn't know what the sign was because
Yeah.
it seems like the sky opened up kind of funny. There was a portal.
Yeah.
But we know now what that was. But back then
Yeah.
we were young and just like, what is that? Like, what's going on? And so, yeah.
Eric, did you think she was a little woohoo asking those questions?
The thing is, if you understand me, I don't care. Like I said, what you see is what you get. I mean, if you ask me a question, I'm gonna give you an answer. So that doesn't intimidate me. I don't have nothing to hide. And
I
so
love that.
I don't. It doesn't bother me. And so it was cool. We were engaged. So that just told me that basically by her asking the questions, it let me know that well, she did reject me. You know what I'm saying? Because if she did, like Deuce's partner, you know what I'm saying? So that didn't bother me at the time. So
Feedback.
I was cool with it.
So, Eric, did you say you're from DC?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Born and raised, from DMV.
Got it. And what about you, Monique?
I'm an Army brat. So actually, I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. But to keep it simple, I just tell people I'm from New Jersey because that's where we stayed the longest.
Got it. And that's what I was kind of picking up, like the East Coast mindset. It seems
Yeah,
like there's a little bit of an understanding, so to speak, like
Right.
even
yeah.
with the way that the communication was going. I love how God just pieces stuff
And you
together.
know what? That is vital. You're picking up on something really good
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
when people we don't do premarital counseling because I don't know, we just seem to offend people for some reason
Yeah.
when we try to talk to them. They get upset with us for some reason. I'm like, I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you what I see. And like a good friend of mine, he bless her heart, she's one of my best friends, and she met some guy from South Georgia. And I was like, and she's from New Jersey. At the time, never been out of New Jersey. I was like, okay, you gonna marry him? That's good. But do you understand the Southern man process, mindset, culture? And I mean, she found out later, but that's what I was trying to tell her. This is what I was trying to tell you. There is a difference in culture. And then another couple, I'm not sure they even still married. One was from like Chicago, and he was from South Jersey. And we Eric and I both saw it. We're like, I was like, there's a cultural difference in communication. But I mean, it's all good. It happens. It's great. But there's definitely a difference of attitude or how you just communicate. And there's nothing wrong, but just have to work through that. You have to be aware of that.
That's a good point. I know Anja she usually likes to look from that perspective, the lens of people's cultural, what they bring to the table in terms of culture, West Coast, East Coast, down South, like all of that. So that's important.
But I mean, it can even go deeper. Like you marry someone who's from Africa or
Yeah.
Caribbean, that's a
Yeah.
total different culture, and you have to be ready for that.
Yeah. You have to understand the different mentalities.
Mhm.
Because I mean, it's interesting. We're raised in the United States, but we're all raised differently. And so it's very yeah, it's important. So it's very important.
I was going to say with that, and especially since we're talking about emotional intelligence, the importance of being able to understand. And this is so funny because I was having dinner with last night with somebody who's from New York. And when I say New York, very New York. Like I was like, like kind of brash and harsh much, but culturally, that's just how it is. So are you guys also seeing things when you say you counsel people? Do you see things within the generations as well?
We really don't counsel people because they
Okay.
kind of run from us, but
However,
they just that I don't think that's our gifting. I mean, we could sit down and talk to you, but that's kind of what we do. But we really don't have the time to counsel anybody.
yeah, but to answer your question, yes, because that's very because the in interest. Think about this. So her friend is almost New Yorkish.
Yeah,
I mean that's how I see
hardcore.
it. Hardcore New York. She sounds like New York. She acts like New York. I mean, because she lived basically in North Jersey for forever, and so this
Hmm.
individual is Valdosta, kind of like Southern Georgia type, basically Florida. So you got two extremes. But the funny thing is, she was attracted to the gentlemanness,
Hmm.
but she didn't see the other part that had to get used to that and so but we do see a difference. We see a difference in terms of culture, but then when you start getting into age and you start getting into I guess what I want to say, what would that be when you talk about age differences? Yes, there is a difference when you get in between when we everybody always talks about the Gen Z's, the Gen X, the Y's and millennials. There, definitely have seen a difference between the two because you're raised in a different era and things were different. Life was different, and as a result, we're all a product of life. So we're a product of our family, and we're a product of the culture and the environment that we grew up in.
Talk to us about how we ended up on this cruise ship, as we titled this.
I was never appreciate.
We
Married.
got married on a cruise ship. You want to go first, Eric?
Nah, go ahead. You homie.
Okay, so um, all right, so he had gone through premarital counseling that lasted seemed like 20 years, but it was good. And so I come from a big family. Like my mother's mother had 8 children. My father's mother had 11. So that's 19 just aunties and uncles, and half of them, more than half of them were married. And then he comes from a big family, equally big. And, we started pricing it out. And at the time, we had 93, I'm a finance person. So we had $93,000 in debt. That did not include a house. So that was student loan debt, card notes, credit cards. And so, when we started pricing things out for a wedding, I was trying to convince him to elope. And see, my grandparents eloped, so it's in the bloodline. So I'm thinking there's nothing wrong with it. And so Eric's like, no, my family got to be there, la la la, because we were pricing out those plates, and I was just like, my cousins were calling me like, ah. I mean, the list of family itself was of 100 people, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I am not spending all that money for a wedding. It's a sacred ceremony, first of all. And then when we learned in premarital counseling that you only want people there who are going to lift you up and who believe in the covenant of marriage, well, that cut our list in half. There's not just a show. They believe and they're going to intercede for you. I'm like, well, that's good. That cuts my list down, because I knew half my family just wanted to come just quote unquote see. And so at the time, my cousin's wife, she was doing something. I forgot what she was doing, some cruise stuff. And so she said, why don't you get married on a cruise ship? Neither one of us had ever been on a cruise ship. And so we did it. So we got married on Royal Caribbean, Sovereign of the Seas in Miami, Florida. And we had never been on a cruise. I had never been to Miami until the day before we got married. And that was hilarious because as soon as I stepped off the plane, because we got married in August, I had an instant afro. My hair was all over my place. And the girl who was with me when I met Eric, she lives in Miami at the time. And so I didn't know she was a former hairstylist. So God just she hooked me up for my wedding and wouldn't charge me nothing. I mean, she's just been a lifesaver. She's just like my little angel friend. She just shows up at these critical moments and then she goes away for like 5 or 6 years and she comes back in and then she goes away and she still does it to this day. It's like, girl, what's going on? And so that's how we end up on a cruise ship
Yeah.
because somebody wanted to get out of debt.
So you had like multiple like new experiences all at once. First time being married, first
Oh
time
yeah.
on a cruise ship, first time
I
in
mean,
Miami.
and I'm really glad that he talked me into having a wedding because now those now that my father had passed away, like in 2013, I think those are some of the most valuable memories that I have of him. That whole wedding process. When I checked into the hotel gave my bridal suite to my parents, because they got there a day before. And so I go up to the bridal suite and it's all decorated, talking about congratulations. They have food, they had cake, and they sitting there eating my food and cake like it was good. It was good. I hope they come up the bridal suite because we ain't leaving.
Oh my goodness.
I was hot. I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was not happy.
All my friends were mad, and I can't believe they did. I was just glad that they were having a good time, because my parents, they would go for it. They want to argue. The whole world gonna hear that argument. So they were just enjoying each other, and I was cool with that. I said, let them go, do their thing, eat my food, whatever, and just go with it. And so,
And let me ask you a question, Monique. How old were you when you got married?
Can ask that question.
33.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what were the expectations? I mean, did your mom, did they be like, oh, I want some grandbabies? Did they say when you get married? Like, what did
no, my parents didn't care. Look, my parents could care less if I ever got married. So they were like, do you whatever you want. There was no expectations. That's the thing. So that kind of made it better because there were no expectations. There was no pressure on me getting married. It was, my parents were like, because I think their marriage was challenging. So they were like, if you never get married, we're good with that.
I can relate.
I
I
think
can
that was the
understand
mom.
that
I
part
think
because I feel like that probably allows you to enjoy more of your life without this kind of like when I then I mindset. Did you ever have that at all prior to getting married? Like, well, when I get married, then I can do.
The funny part you say is that I always walked around saying I'm marriage material, even when I didn't even know what that meant because, back before, like, when you were dating in college and stuff and guys dump you or they were whatever. And I was like, I'm marriage material. So what you talking about? I've always confessed that, not realizing what declaration I was making, but I knew I was marriage material. And I said it over and over again. And I would tell people, I'm marriage material. So what are you talking about? You're not going to treat me like that. So exactly. So I knew I was marriage material for a long time. I think my mom said that you're marriage material. Somebody said it because growing up, they were like, you need to know, like, you need to know how to cook, do a budget because you're marriage material. They would say, we're making you marriage material.
That's powerful right there.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so
How's
they were
that
like,
for mom
and
dad?
dad too. Yeah, dad. I miss my father tremendously.
Yeah, I'm a dude.
But he was just glad somebody married me. He was like, here she is, bye. But
Okay,
he
I
just
have a question.
wanted somebody to treat me right. That's all. That was his
Got
only
it.
requirement.
So you were working in the entertainment industry part time,
Mm-hmm.
around a lot of people, around a lot of stuff. And Eric, what was your mindset at that time that you met her?
Oh, this interesting. Like she said, what she didn't tell you was that. So we met in uh
96.
96. So we met actually September 1st, 1996 is the day that we met. And so what she didn't tell you was coming into that year, she prayed and made a list of all the things that she wanted
Oh yeah,
in
that's
the
right.
guy.
I
And
had
so
petitioned the Lord.
she petitioned the Lord. So she wrote all these things down of what she wanted in a guy. And 9 months later, I show up. And so meanwhile, the funny thing is I like I said, I worked in DC and I worked in Crystal City. So if you know anything about DC, the national airport is like it sits right there, and right next to it is Crystal City. And so I was able to park and kind of walk to the airport. So I have free parking. I ain't gonna pay for parking. Because what people don't understand is that while Monique is in finances, I'm in finances too, from the business standpoint. So we're both frugal. So we both have a mindset, in terms of really money and budget minded. And so I was like, I ain't paying for parking. So I'm gonna go park in my free spot and I'm just gonna walk over. So I drop my mom and my aunt off and I walk over. And on the way over, I'm praying to God, I was like, you know what kind of thing I said, I want to be married. I want to have XYZ. So I gave him a list. Walking across the bridge, going over to National Airport, of what I wanted in a wife and a woman. I didn't think anything of it. It was just a general conversation. And so that's just kind of how it was. And so I didn't realize I was going to meet Monique within the next 2 or 3 days at the time. So yeah, but the funny part is that um, you talk about Monique, her mom. My mom always prepared me to be independent as well, because the way just kind of how everything worked. My father and my mother were married for several years, but I have two brothers and a sister, so I didn't grow up as the only child. And so, but my mom prepared me to do everything. So I had to do everything that men could do. My brother helped me to fix stuff and do stuff, and in college, you got prepared for that. Through I had some situations in college that forced me to do those things. So I was already used to doing stuff on my own. But then my mom, I love being in the kitchen, so I spent a lot of time with my mom. So I learned how to cook. I learned how to do a lot of domestic stuff. And so as a result, I was just prepared. And she always said that as a husband, you want to do X, Y, Z. And so she prepared me that way. And then as a result, I end up running into Monique. So
Question: were there any fears that hindered the process, like the engagement, the actual wedding? Like, were there fears?
Well, yeah, for me, because I'm in DC. I'm moving down I gotta leave my family. I mean, I lived out of state. I was in college for years. But I come home, but I now have to leave to go to a place that I've never lived before.
So you chose to leave DC.
Yeah, I had to leave DC. And that's a process that Monica and I can get into as we go. But I'm leaving to basically get married to a woman that we only have a long distance relationship with. I mean, let's be real. I've only seen her at this particular maybe 10 times. Well, let's say 20 max. And so maybe 30. And so I'm leaving everybody, as I said, my father and mother and family, to move to a different city, a different place, which is a whole nother testimony, to be with this woman. So I am going to a new job. That's a whole nother, that's testimonies in of itself. To go, and I'm like, okay, Lord, is this right? Am I making the right decision? Are you sure? One of those things.
Yeah.
We had to throw out the fleece. Is it gonna be wet today? Make it dry. Turn it over. And so I'm gonna sit doing stuff like that. Let the phone ring if that's her. So that was, that's you, Lord. Let the phone ring. So so it was a little bit of apprehension at first, but then I got kind of got settled. But for me, after I made the decision, then it was a done deal. But yeah, because you don't know, you're going through the unknown. You're like, Lord, is this the right decision? Am I gonna make the biggest mistake in my life? And so yeah, and that was it for me. After that, I was good.
It's interesting though that you say, and I've heard others say that too, because traditionally the way people are groomed to think in the church or whatever, the woman is supposed to leave, and we're all leaving and cleaving, but the woman is supposed to leave and go wherever the man is located.
Yeah, and so here's the funny thing. So
I was trying to go to DC, but he said no. God said go to Georgia.
So check this out, guys. So what ended up happening was, all right, we had to get to a point where we settled that we were going to get married. So we met in September, and because it all kind of goes to your point, Nicole. So we met in September. I come to visit Monique on Veterans Day, November 11th, that year. God shows me a vision that she's my wife. I didn't say anything. But then God basically, I'm telling Monique's portion, God told her that she was going to be my helpmate in December. By this time, once we got in December, we kind of knew we were going to get married. But then, so we start going into the year '97 to basically be prepared to be husband and wife. And so that's where we started the planning process. But then we had to figure out where we're going to live. And so the funny thing is that she also was in banking. I'm in IT. I could go anywhere. And the way, when she was working, Bank of America,
Yeah, I
and so
could have gone anywhere.
she could
Let
go
me just
anywhere.
interject real quick to say that I love how smooth this sounds. Wasn't nobody confused for the most part. Wasn't nobody like, what? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just seems so. God said this, God said that.
We
Okay, we
did.
gonna start putting these
Confident.
pieces together. Listen, and I hate that this is holding me back because this mic and the feedback is holding me back. I don't like that because I like to interject. But I just wanted to say that I love how smooth everything sounds. It's just
Oh yeah.
it's warm in my heart. Okay,
Yeah.
please continue.
Oh, it was extremely. I mean, we're not joking. We're not exaggerating. This is for real. And so when we had to figure out where we're going to live, so we looked into Tampa. Tampa was hot with IT. Dallas was hot with IT. Monique wanted to come up to DC. I could have stayed in DC in my job. And Monique, and at the time, she could have moved to Tampa. She could have moved to Dallas. But Atlanta was hot. But God always told me that I was going to live in Atlanta. I loved Atlanta. I have family in Georgia, and so I had a cousin that lived. Actually, the funny part, my cousin lived literally a mile down the street where our first apartment was, and I didn't know that. And so, but anyway, so check this out. So we
Still
figured out,
living mile down the street.
yeah. And so now we try to figure like, Lord, what we're gonna do. Came down here to visit, and actually Pastor Curdy missed the message that said that he talked about Ruth and Naomi. He said, you can't get fed. I forgot the whole gist of it, but he's talking about you can't get fed everywhere. You got to make sure that you stay where God called for you to go. He said if you don't, you end up going to circus and you end up dealing with famine. And so like, oh, okay, this is where we're supposed to be. And so we said, okay. And so what ended up happening was this is God is amazing because this is all part of it. So let me shorten it up. So you guys listen to this. I got interviewed. Remember, I'm in DC. I don't know how in the world that my employer got my resume. I still don't know. Remember, this is before internet really happened. Somehow they got my resume. I interview on the phone. And I interview on the phone, they end up hiring me over the phone. And not only did they hire me over the phone, they gave me I got a 18%, no, $10,000 increase for what I was making in DC. But you got to understand, remember DC at the time is a higher pay grade than Atlanta. I start interviewing down here. They told me I couldn't make that type of money down here, and I'm like, well, yeah, you ain't my, you're not my representative. You're not the person. And I end up getting hired. Put this with the first day I walked into the office, I didn't even, first of all, I didn't know where it was. I didn't know my office was. I didn't know who my manager was. I didn't know what they looked like.
That's
But they
hilarious.
hired me over the phone. And so it was just smooth. We know I moved into my apartment, which was in the same complex as Monique, because we had a great representative at the time. She moved me into my apartment.
Rebecca.
Rebecca. Yep. And we moved into the apartment and joined the church the same day. My best friend moved me down that weekend, and it was then we immediately went into marriage counseling.
It just makes me think about just ordered steps.
Yes.
Truly divinely orchestrated and ordered steps.
But I got to tell you how we got catapulted into ministry
Oh
because
man.
while we were dating, we weren't ministers. We weren't doing anything like that. And so God had gave me a dream. And in the dream, I was at a grocery store and Jesus was the cashier and the food were people just going down a little thing and just dropping into hell. I'm like, why do people go to hell? And he said, because you're not saying anything to them. And then the next day, we go to church and they're advertising for evangelism. And we immediately joined the evangelism team. And that's how we got started in ministry. And so people think that, we grew up in church or that's not our story.
No.
Oh wow! So y'all were fishers of men, which I know about that.
We
Y'all
were definitely
from
fishers of men.
Bert,
Yeah.
Bert.
How
That
you
was
know
the
about
name.
Yeah.
fishing? How you know about
Yeah.
fishing?
Because my friend used to be a member there, and so I have supported like an event. I know about the Fishers of Men. Yeah.
Okay. Well, just
So
telling you know, Monique and Eric, we were over the night fighters, so we would go out at night and witness.
Oh
And
wow, love
so
it.
that was a lot of fun. And so we learned a lot about God on the
yeah,
street.
let me rephrase it. She joined the ministry and then pulled me in.
Right, exactly. That's
And-
exactly
That's
how it
okay.
happened.
That's how it happens sometimes. But I love how healthy all of this sounds. It sounds so healthy and so like it didn't seem like it was overly religious because as you guys just said, you guys weren't even tripping about the Lord, but yet you guys heard him
yeah.
and then still like together walked in the direction. And you just said it was so much fun. I love it when people are saying ministry is fun because it don't have to be all humdrum.
No, we try
All the
to this day we
time.
try to make
Yeah.
ministry fun.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of our goals, not to well, you know, try to make it a community. And you know, what we learned from Fishers and Men is that to this day, the core group, we all still help each other to this day. And we all belong to different churches. Like if someone says, I need you to do this, and you know, if I got time, I'm over there helping you. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's about relationships. We're
Yeah.
the kingdom.
And
And
honestly, you know, today, of course, I know you today in your world today and how you are responsible for things and positions in the church and titles and things, and they have their place, right? But how do you find the balance? Talk to that because I think we talked a little bit, Monique. How do you find that balance to where you're not top heavy in the clouds, or you know, like how do we find the balance?
That's a good question. You know, it like ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes it's like fire drill, just do, and then you get a break, or then you just have to take a break. You know,
Yeah.
you know. So it's just when you say
And
balance,
I know
I
you had
don't.
said too, though. I remember in our conversation previously, you were mentioning all types of friends and the
Oh
things
yeah.
that
Oh
you do
yeah.
to find fun, you know, and
Oh
speak
my
to that.
God.
Yeah. I mean, we make sure, at least I do, that I have friends outside the church, meaning that, you know, like when I go home sometimes, like, it was so funny. One time Eric was ministering him at El Tony. There was the deliverance thing at for the group. And so I had cast the screen on the TV at home with my family, and they're like, is that Eric? What are you doing up there? They let him talk at the mic.
No way.
Let me just be quiet. Just listen to him, you know. And they listen. They stayed. I thought they're gonna leave. No, they stayed for the whole training, you know.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh Lord, this is really funny, you know. And so, and then like my friend Michelle, I love her dearly. We've been friends since college. And she said, well, what you mean you can't come home? I said, I got to speak at a women's conference. What? You know, like, what you doing? And so it's funny. You know, it's just funny.
I
But
mean, because we you know, I believe in. I mean, I have my friends are my friends, and as a
Mhm.
result, the thing of it is that what you like I said, what you see is what you get. But my, you know, I have friends before, you know, and they're still my good friends, and they don't see us that way,
Mhm.
and they just see us as Eric and Monique, and we are. I'm still Eric and
I
Monique.
think that's so important, though.
Yeah.
It's a humbling, and not humbling like, oh, this is beating me down, but just a very, I don't know, just a very appreciative place, a safe place, if you will, like just a humbling place.
Yeah, and our family don't see us, and our family don't see us like don't see us like that either.
Yeah.
So they don't know I mean, I mean, my brother still don't have a clue. My older brother, they
I
have.
have I have a feeling that like it just that could be very wrong, but just from what I'm observing, I think it's like the joy that you guys both have that's very like healthy. And
Yeah,
I'm not just saying like, oh, the joy within marriage. I'm talking about the joy individually.
yeah,
That is what draws all men unto thee. So
yeah.
that you guys can have friends on the outside. You guys could just be cool wherever you guys are. Because I noticed you guys, I'm peeping it out. It seems like you guys are just kind of level, kind of cool. Got that little East Coast swag thing. But
yeah,
it
Like what you said.
draws, but it's also there's a joy to it. So it's like,
Oh,
you guys probably attract people just kind of being you guys. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
call it, for me, I call it, well, it's something we learn in Friendship Men also, friendship evangelism. You
Mm.
know, I have a god brother who's been heaven sent, who's been helping me with my mother, and he's in his early 30s. And I said something. Oh, he's like, so when you argue, when you and Eric argue, do you argue like your mom or you argue like your dad? And I'm like, well, we really don't argue. And I said, the reason we don't argue is that in Job 40 or 41, I forgot exactly which one it is. I said, I asked the Lord to kill the spirit of Leviathan, which is over communication, so
Mm.
that we won't
Oh,
miscommunicate. And
Yeah.
he said, I knew you're going to quote some type of scripture. I just knew it, but I'm being intentional with him, with my conversations with him. I'm just going to be me, but he knows I'm going to say something what the
right.
Lord has said, because I'm concerned about him.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
we're going to draw you in, dude, one way or the other. You're going to wash or the rinse. You're going to get saved and delivered.
Speaking of that, though, because that's a part of the emotional intelligence. How do we arrive at a place where we are finding resolution in a healthy way and solving conflict? Because I mean, the Bible says offense will come, right?
Mm-hmm.
We find our ways to navigate that offense, but especially if somebody like up close and personal, they never leave.
Right.
Hello, you're here. So how do you navigate those times where there may be some kind of conflict or disagreement?
And I'll say it like this, and I think it goes back to the first statement we made: marrying your best friend. And so when you think about your best friend, how many times have you disagreed with your best friend? I mean, and you did not agree, but yet they still was your best friend, and you could disagree. I mean, you probably still can disagree today and argue, but they still your best friend, and you let it go, and you keep moving. And that's one of the greatest things that happen, because one of the things that Monique talked about, the killing the spirit of the vine. One of the challenges that we have is that we had rather is communication. And so it could be the smallest detail. And I one of
Oh,
one,
yeah.
one of the strangest things that ever happened, and I think we always remember, we went to Macy's and we let her out and we said we're going to meet right. And then this is before I think we had cell phones, but cell phones wasn't really
Yeah,
popular back then. It
right.
was like we're going to meet right here, and say like 20 minutes or something like that. Well, what one person meant was the Macy's, the other person meant I meant maybe at this particular this store in the spot, and then say Monique met at Macy's, and she was at a different store, and it was just the little details, small foxes spoil the vine. And so we were hot, man, and we just missed it. It was like, okay, look, all right, so we got to make sure that this doesn't happen. And so now we had to almost over communicate and really be detailed about it. Because the other thing that's important when you talk about this, or one of the things we learned even post-marital counseling, is that when we talk about families, Monique was talking about her mom and dad being just being at cordial at one point. Well, while my mother and father did not necessarily, I never really heard them really kind of go at each other, but my father was pretty boisterous, and he's going to tell you how he feels. So with all the loud talking, we knew that we didn't want marriage. We didn't know we knew we didn't want a relationship where there was a bunch of conflict. And so we had to figure out, okay, let me just at least listen to the person, and let me come with some conflict resolution, and let
Yeah,
me understand. Because, even going through communication in school, there's the sender, the receiver, the perceived, and
exactly.
all that other stuff. And so it's like, well, let me just if I understand it, let me think about the other person, and let me try to hear what they have to say, and let me get an understanding. We
Yeah,
still may not agree, but if I ever understand what she's trying to communicate, it just really helps.
it does. It
I
does.
just want to say this one last thing, because I know
Uh-huh.
we got to go. When I know that, I'm like, okay, he ain't gonna like this, Lord. I just like, okay, Lord, I just appropriate the blood of Jesus over our communication. Father, Lord, when I speak those words, you convert them to how he wants to hear or how he needs to hear, because I just like, some things you're like, like, for instance, we rehabbed the house last year, and I was like, I ain't trying to spend all that money. And he was like, no, we got to do this and da 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 da. And I was like, oh, Lord. And, we did it. We did it. And I said, I need to change my attitude, because the house does need to be rehabbed up to speed. and we can get when now we got a great tenant and they pay on time, and thank you Jesus. So it's paying off. But it was just like, let me change me. I know me,
Yeah.
I know me. So it's like, let me change me. So I already know, like he already knows. So been married this long, you already know, like, oh, they ain't gonna like that one.
I go back to the value, like you all said, of really understanding what you want out of a best friend. Really understand it, because sometimes we can say we have these friends, and even early on in our lives, we kind of we find ourselves in a relationship, but we haven't really defined that, even a friendship, right? Even covenant friendship, and what is valuable to us. And one of the things I hear you say, and I've heard and I've said this before, is in a good friendship, a healthy friendship, like you're saying, even though I disagree with you and I might be hot, sometimes I just might be hot because that's, hey, I just need to be here for a minute, just for a minute. But even in that, I respect and love you enough to say, I'm not going to hit below the belt. Like, because I've heard that said before, sometimes people hit me, hey, that was low. Like, just because you're angry with me or disappointed in me or whatever you're feeling, like, don't necessarily attack my character or try to pull me down. Like, those things are important, because you wouldn't do that to someone you love as your best friend, right? So I just wanted to make that point. Andrea, did you want to say something?
I was just grateful actually for her wisdom and sharing that, because you and I, Nicole, had just had the conversation about the importance of using the scripture, using the word to like break ground before, when talking about relationships or any kind of friendship or anything, if there's hard spaces and hard places to get to, using the power of the scripture to break the ground and hit the foundation, and then like welcoming God in there to soften it, so that we don't have to toil so much with arguing with people. And Monique just honestly, in a very eloquent way, just simplified it big time. While we were all like all heavy with the word, she just very quickly simplified it, like, Lord, help me to say this or whatever in a way that he will hear it and understand it, and it transmutes however it does into his ears, so that all can be peace. So that was a really powerful wisdom tactic. Thank you.
That was. And one thing I want to say, Monique, to you is, as your tides shift, because they will shift at some point, seasons ebb and flow, like you said, to strongly consider mentoring young ladies, because that, the ease that you said that, right, and the wisdom that you had in that, so many women don't know that, especially those that desire marriage and they're getting ready to step into that place. They need to know that. Listen, they need to come heavy with those heavy artillery, right? That literally is arsenal. It's a part of an arsenal to be able to declare that, to speak over a thing with the word of God. And you need that. So, ma'am.
Yeah,
just like her mama said, she was the wife. I'm going to say mentor Monique. Prepare.
So,
and mentor Eric.
So, hey, look. So here's what I need to ask you. So, Monique. So, let me ask you a question. Have you learned anything about how to talk to men? Let's speak to that a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's, what I think was really important. I think the best example I had were my parents. So, I mean, I love my parents. I'm not disrespecting. I learned what not to do by my parents. Okay. And so I think sometimes my mom has some issues with me and my father's relationship, because I kind of knew how to talk to him, and I'd be like, Daddy, and she would say, well, how come he do that for me, but not you? Well, I'm like, I didn't cuss him out, I didn't call him an idiot, I was like, Daddy, I love you. You're the best. And I can get anything from my father, and she wanted that, and so, but I learned that at a very young age. And I learned also from Apostle Long too. He taught us how to talk to men, but I just learned it. Learned it along the way. You just can't come at a man, because I'm telling you now, I work with all kinds of men, Puerto Rican men, white men, Chinese, all men. You cannot come at a man like that, period.
I love
at
it.
work, in relationships, no, because men are made to be fighters. So you're gonna come, oh, I'm every woman. No. Bring that down. Bring that straight down.
But you're right, though, because that's the power of being soft, right, Monique?
Yeah, you can get your point done. It's just like, I got nothing to prove to nobody. Just want to know, hey, how you doing? You know, even with my boss that I have now, I learned how to talk to him. You know, for a second we were like on the wrong page, but now I got it. I'm like, hey, you know, it's a good day. How you look great today. You know, I know what I have to say. You know, that's
And
but
the
you
other
know,
point, I'm gonna say this because I feel like this is such an important point, especially for people who desire marriage. And then the older we get, I just have to say, let's make it plain. The older that we
mhm,
get, the longer we have waited. God is gonna do a thing, but we don't want to be set in our ways. We want to be malleable. We want to be soft, and we want to
mhm,
literally listen. It's a humility in what you're saying because the other coin of that, the other side of the coin, excuse me, is what women do in the world, manipulation.
mhm.
Other side of that coin. But what you're doing, what the Bible talks about, and I don't know the scripture, nor do I know the address, but I know he talks about the
Verse
honey,
31.
right? The,
Mhm.
the softness and the honey. But how you can someone can take that word and stomach it if it's soft, if it's not soft but sweet. So I say that to say the power in what you're saying, especially with women of God and women of color, because many of us are still desiring marriage and in the wait to understand. Mentor Monique, we're going to come back again to just say like
Okay.
consistency because it's such a point that needs to be driven home with our
Yeah.
population, really, because we're boss babes. Listen, we know how if you can't do it, we'll get it done,
Right.
and that's just how we were groomed by single mothers,
Yeah.
by people
Yeah,
who are used to
yeah.
where you and we can. The Deborahs, come on, we can stand in that position because God has called us many times to stand in that positions, but we should know how to shift roles and be able to be again malleable, moldable, flexible, humble, the bridesmaids unto him. I could keep going because it's my lane, but I'm reminding the coach, the mentor, we need you.
That's fine. You can
Yeah.
have me back another time. Just let me know. I
And
make
it is
time for you.
interesting. You know, I always say about the Deborahs, right? Deborah's the one that put Barack into place.
Come
So
on.
you know, having the Deborahs know how to talk to know how to talk to a man and put him in place and have it work for you. Have it work for you.
That's wisdom too. Very true.
Have it work for
Uh,
you,
I
man.
mean,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
funny.
I mean, the enemy came to a woman to bring
Yeah,
this whole world down. He didn't go to Eve. He didn't go to Adam. He came to a woman.
right.
To that's how much power we have.
That's right. Yeah,
All by conversation.
yeah, and
All
we always
right.
say, man, if a woman could understand who she is and how
Yeah.
men look at them, and Monica and I had a conversation about that, about how men look at women.
How?
And oh, so here's the thing now. So I told Monica, I said, men gonna put you in category. Men gonna put you in category. You either gonna be, and I don't know if this is a family friendly show because there's a part of me that's really real.
Come on.
Uh,
Keep
Bring it.
it real.
We're real.
you either gonna be a booty call, or you gonna be the girlfriend, or you gonna be the wife. So you're gonna be the booty call. You know he gonna call you to come get some, and then and you'll never go past that point
Yeah.
because you already gave it up and you came after him that way, and so he's gonna put you in a category, and so you look at you as a whole, and so that's how he's gonna look at you. Then there's gonna be the girlfriend. The girlfriend is gonna be there all the time. You know, she's gonna be nice. She may meet the family, and she'll be good. And he getting a little bit here and there, and you guys are going through. But now, instead of being, you're there for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5, and you the girlfriend. But then all of a sudden, y'all break up, and then all of a sudden he get married. You're like, hold up, we broke up 6 months ago. How in the world he engaged? And so you weren't the wife material. And so you thought you were the wife material, but you didn't set any standards. And so God's and they'll put you in categories real quick. They'll know exactly where you are. And then and so now the woman has to carry herself in such a way that says, no, I'm wife material. You need to treat me that way. And
Mm,
sometimes you're gonna have to say no. You're gonna have to set your boundaries and know who you are.
yeah.
Because if you don't do that, if you start compromising and going the other way, then you know that, oh, okay, she's nice and everything. Okay, she has some standards. Oh, she can meet the family, but no, she's not going to be my wife.
Ooh. Eric, I want to ask you, can you speak to when men, if you know any men that have experienced this, or I don't know if you experienced it, but when men are intimidated by the women?
Yeah, yeah, and that's interesting because now, the and I'll say it like this loosely. When we talk about cultural differences and we're talking about different places. So in growing up in the Northeast, y'all, we y'all, everything fast. Yeah, we used to aggressiveness. We used to women doing, doing, all right, girl, do that thing. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah.
That's right. Come on, that's right. That's what I want. I want somebody like that. But then your typical, and I may be wrong, but forgive me, but just my experience, and I'm not talking about this is our case, but I'm talking about just in general. So what happens is that sometimes with Southern men, this is the truth. Sometimes it can be intimidating when the wife makes more money than you,
Hmm.
when the wife has now a position that's greater than you, when the wife is doing something that you're not doing. And so now what happens is that men start to put women to account. You're the wife. Even my brother, even up north, he has this, and I'm just going to say it like this. He has this thing of what he talk about men. Women are supposed to be submissive to men. And so now they want to put women in categories to where they're saying that, okay, I got to be the man and you got to do what you're going to do what you're going to do what I say you're going to do.
Mm.
And so sometimes like, hold up, she not the woman on Coming to America. She ain't gonna bark like a dog. You gotta look at her as an asset. I mean, as a wife, this is my partner. This is my girl. We going through this thing together. I want her to be the best that she could be. I want to support her in everything that she does. I'm going to be her biggest cheerleader. Let's do that thing. Yeah,
But it takes a level
all.
of confidence, I think, in not some men are just kind of
Yeah.
insecure, unfortunately.
Some men will actually will leave a relationship because they get intimidated.
Yeah.
Some men won't even go forward because they're scared that their wife is going to be, quote unquote, have more success, and it will sabotage the relationship.
Yeah.
I have a question. So,
Dating,
and
that's
I
one
know
of the
we got to
questions
wrap
for
up
me
real
too.
quick.
Oh,
We got to wrap up.
we just get
But this is
started.
something because you just hit something.
We just getting started.
Huh?
He said we just getting started.
Listen, seriously. But so I've known raised in the South, family in the South and stuff like that. But that mindset of the men taking care of everything, I've literally had so many friends whose boyfriends worked and their whole thing was just go to school. So it was like the woman didn't have to go to school. And I'm noticing now a lot of conversation where everywhere they're talking about this whole value, what is it, a valuable man, or
High value man.
yeah, there we go. Thank you. High value man, high value woman. And so I've seen some of my friends on the East Coast specifically, because that's what I can say, because what you just said was on it. The women have so much drive, and now all of a sudden these same dudes that like the drive and they were all kind of like get it, get it, get it. Now it's kind of like they want to adopt that mindset. And I'm like, that's not fair.
Right.
It's
Right.
not.
It's not. And we said this. I remember when she talked about her friend. I remember before we got married. Remember Jay said this. It's like you two are
Oh
chained.
yeah.
You two are chained at the ankles, and you have to get around the tree.
Mm.
So how you gonna do that? You got to work together. And here's the thing: the scripture tells us two shall become one. The thing is that we're one. We take, and Bishop even Bishop used to talk about that. Look, guess what? We'll take. You're gonna make your $1,000,000 and put it in the bank account. I'm going to make my $500 and put it in with your $1,000,000, and we're going to have $1,500,000
Exactly.
together. And so we're going to do this thing together. And the thing is that when you start separating, yeah, there's some roles and responsibilities, but when you look at it as we're together, we're a couple, and then we're going to conquer this world together. And when you look at it as a team, then you won't look at it as individuals, male and female, wife or husband, but we'll look at it together. And then we'll
But
celebrate our successes together. Go ahead, dear.
that's really good because that's something you have to ask Holy Spirit early on if you're thinking about marrying someone. Because when I was in graduate school at Clark Atlanta, some of our male counterparts flat out told us they would never marry us. And we were like,
What?
thank you very much, because we don't want to marry you either. So it was like, we don't want you either. So, I mean, they flat out
But,
told
but
us
because you were successful, because you had a lot of
yeah,
accolades, like
they
what?
flat out told us that. And we were like, good, we don't want you either because you're country and whatever. We're like, we don't want you. And so it was no feelings hurt.
Right.
However, I know exactly what you're saying. It's like,
Yeah,
so many people are doing good things, but that's something you have to ask the Lord early
yeah.
on. Don't even waste your time
Please.
if someone's going to be intimidated by your success, because you don't need to dummy down.
Right, right. You don't.
Yeah.
And one of the things we didn't say, I know, one of the things we didn't say when we first got married, we had to go when our marriage counsel is about 25 pages that we had to fill out. But here's the thing, Monique and I, we had to go over every aspect of marriage and life, but we had to plan it together. How are you going to handle finances?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to handle if you have kids, you don't have kids? How are you going to handle career? How are you going to handle every aspect? How are we going to handle communication? How are you going to have? And so now the thing is that we had to come to a consensus. And so when you plan together, you can work together and you be together. But
Yeah.
if you sometimes what happens is that people and couples don't plan for those things. And they
Mm-hmm.
got to understand that, and they have to have sometimes you have to have the wisdom and the people around them to pull it out and to
Yes.
ask you those questions. And so
Yes.
when you can do that, and it's like, oh, I never thought about that. And then you could come together, talk about it, pray about it, and have a plan. Then you can walk it out.
That's
And
good.
then you can also identify some of the possible shortcomings or pitfalls up front so that you can make the proper adjustments even before you even get there to be
That's
able to manage.
healthy, as Andrea would say. That's very healthy. Two things before we're getting ready to outro. I'm just going to outro us out, but two things I have to ask for, because I know one time, Monique, we were talking, and you were telling me how when you, what happened to you when you are on the cruise ship and right before y'all are about to go get married. You have to tell that story, and then guys, we want y'all to give some words of encouragement.
Okay. So the morning I got married, it was warfare on. It's like me and the devil. We were having a good time together. And so, okay, so first I called Eric, I think 7 times that morning. What, before 7 or 9? I don't know what time I called you. I just want to make sure that you up, which I do last night, the whole thing. And I was just like being tormented. And I was like, oh my God. What if he don't show up? What this happened? What if that happens? And then I was just a nervous wreck. I was like, can I do this forever? Forever? I thought I was just gonna pass out. And so we didn't have a wedding rehearsal because we got married on a cruise ship. I had never been on a cruise ship. So the girl comes to my cabin trying to give me instructions. I'm like, lady, I'm about to get married. I can't even hear what you're saying. Just show me where to go. So my dad is there and he is happy as a lark. Now, wait, I got to back up for 1 second. Yeah. I told my father to get a black tuxedo, any color. And that was a whole bunch of drama. So he calls me about a month before the wedding and says, I got my custom white tuxedo made. And I said, Daddy, I said, black. I don't want to wear black. I said, Eric is wearing white. You're not the groom. And so he gonna show up with the tuxedo that he just pull out his closet with the red cummerbund. My colors were not red, they were green. So, he shows up like that. But he was so happy, And then they opened the door, but I asked the Lord before the door was open, don't make me cry, Holy Spirit, because I don't want to mess up my wedding pictures, And so everything was funny. I had the Holy Spirit joy, just cracking up, and my dad is making jokes, and he was like, the getaway cars on cabin 4, if you want to go, don't want to change your mind. And then he was like talking about Bill, his best friend. I didn't know that boy was a preacher. I was cussing like a sailor last night. I mean, this is a conversation we're having coming down the aisle, And then they said, stop and turn around at the altar. Oh, I know where the altar was. So I stopped in the middle of the aisle and tied myself up in my train. I was just a wreck. And so
she gets turned
I finally made it to
back.
Yeah. So I finally made it to the altar, and Bill was like, okay, let us pray. And I said, I just held my breath because I was laughing so much. And he was like, this is not a funny moment. This is really serious. And I was thinking, it can be funny as long as I want. I just pay for my own wedding. What are you talking about? If I want to laugh, I'm going to laugh. And then you even hear in the wedding video, you hear my mother saying, oh, she's nervous. She's nervous. That's what she does when she's nervous. And I was nervous. She was spot on because I was standing up there like, you mean forever? Ever? Mm-hmm. And Eric was cool as a cop. Like, yeah, so I was like, I had to get through my vows, and I finally said I do, and I just let this relief out. I was just so nervous. I was just like, I thought I was gonna pass out. So
that's
how we.
Yeah,
it was.
we
It was. I was a
it's a whole bunch of other stories. Sorry that we didn't get to those.
yeah, that we couldn't tell you about
I'm
that
sorry.
part. We had to take you to dinner for the rest. But
Absolutely. I'm gonna hold you to that.
Yeah.
yeah, because
So
I was like, forever.
both of us, we all got to come to together.
Yes.
Yeah.
So listen, encourage the folks, and then, like I said, Anja will lead us out. But listen, yeah, because our people, and the really funny thing is the demographic that we found that really watches us when we started looking at the stats are men.
Really?
Really? Oh man.
Deep.
Yeah, they're
Oh
like
wow.
ages 35, I think 44 or something like that. So
Oh my.
Really? Oh, I
That's
mean,
deep. Uh-oh.
oh man, I talk to the men, man.
yes, please do.
Keep it simple. It don't have to be complicated. Oh, the
Oh,
kitchen.
keep it simple. Oh, don't sweat the
Keep it
small
simple.
stuff. First and foremost, before you even get married, you need to know who you are.
Yeah.
You know, before you become one, which one are you? You know, you gotta figure that out.
And you know what? To encourage your word, what I say to the men, step out. And this is the thing, and Monique can hear me. The men step out. It's okay. If you see somebody you like, just approach them and say hi. Can we go have a cup of coffee? Can we have lunch or something? Don't be afraid because there's too many sisters out here who are nice, wonderful, awesome, incredible ladies that are out here, and they'll be open, and just don't be afraid, and just be yourself. Be yourself. Step out, say hi, and just be friends. Just enjoy the company. And as life goes on, if for some reason it opens up, just go with the flow. But don't be afraid to step out. Don't be afraid to don't allow fear to hold you back, because that's one of the things that tried to hold me. So you don't allow fear. Fear shouldn't be the aspect. Just step out and do it. And I think, men, you will be amazed at the response of these nice young ladies who are waiting for you to just say hi. And so I just encourage all the brothers, just say hi. That's all you got to do. Just say
And
hi.
just be friends first. I mean, when
Just be
someone says
friends.
hi, don't go out there picking china cabinets,
Yeah.
china patterns. You know,
You're not getting married. You're not getting married tomorrow. Just
you
be
know,
friends,
just
and
chill.
it'll happen naturally. Please,
Yeah.
bro, just step out there and just trust me, bros who out there. There are a lot of women who are waiting for you, and you can do it. And just really, God is. I mean, the women are waiting for you, but I believe also God is cheering you on as well.
I love that. Thank you, mentors Monique and mentor Eric.
You're welcome.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And for everybody who tuned in today, we welcome you and we thank you for tuning in with us. Until next time, stay in love.
Amen.
I couldn't unmute. Stay in love.
Now for Kaz and Jazz's love story.